Hi guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. Hope you're doing well. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And if you get anything from my work, an epiphany, I'll connect to that. There's my dyslexia working. A mic drop moment. A mushroom cloud moment. A new book to read. New authors to explore. Please consider supporting my work. All the links are at the bottom of the description. Howdy ho. Hope everybody is having a great start of the weekend, sort of. Oahspe, book of Cpenta-Armij. We're going to continue first book of God and then the other part. I was supposed to have someone come over to give me an estimate on a shed, and they never showed up. This is the third person to disappoint me. We'll see what happens on Sunday. They're supposed to come over again. Sucks. But anywho, my goodies are coming along. The store is almost ready to launch, and I don't know what I'm yet launching. I'm still in contemplation on if I'm using a site or I'm going to do something by myself like I did in the past. It's just hard with all the stuff that I have and going back and forth. So I have to look at my options. But anywho, fun times. I made candles earlier. That's why this is kind of gonna be up late. I made rosemary mint candles. And the other day we made lavender sage. It's small production. It's just me doing all this work. But I'll have those for sale as well. Very excited. Chapter 7. And again, as you can see, my dyslexia is on its kick. Fun friend. So let's be mindful that things might go. I don't mean it to go that way. Hai Siang became converted to the doctrines of Po, as taught by God, who was called T'in in those days in that country. Asin and Ha Sigang and Tisgao entered into compact to throw off the dominion of Han, and so notified him. Han thereupon declared war against them, and he pursued them cruelly, laying waste a great country. Po and his followers were thus driven toward the south, and on their way they gathered up the faithless of the tribes of He-Ha. I don't make these words up, I promise. How it came to pass that Han's success in war was so great that he concentrated not his armies, but caused them to scatter in different ways. And behold, he went so far that the barbarians fell upon his armies and destroyed them. And Han himself perished by the blow of a barbarian woman. In the 4th year of the inspiration of Po, he returned and possessed the countries of Fei, Hangadai, and Silov, and he reinstated Asin and He Sang as governors. Hai Sigang called a council of 13 kingdoms of Jayath, and after 70 days deliberation, Hai Siang was made ruler over Jayath, receiving the title King of the Sun. And he established the doctrines of Po by law, changing the name of all light to T'in, signifying God. and he stopped all persecution against the faithless, and he prohibited idol worship. And Poe traveled east and west, north and south, teaching and displaying miraculous things, and God was with him at all times and places, gathering together the chosen, explaining and practicing the commandments of God, TN. And man increased to worship all idols and gods and saviors, worshiping the Creator only. The next chapter. The first Phoenician Bible. Being of Abraham, a man chosen by God for the children of Arabia. Out of the hosts of Parisi, who were of the people of Shem, who were since the days of the flood, came Abraham, a man chosen by God, in the arks of Septa and Bon, for the deliverance of the faithless of Arabia. God said, because they have not raised up one out of the sons of Ham, thy name shall be henceforth Abraham. And it shall be testimony in thousands of years of my records in the libraries of heaven. And it came to pass that foregoers and deceivers, not having the fear of Jehovah before them, falsely gave the interpretation of the meaning of the words Abra and Ham, not knowing in thousands of years that in a small matter he would display the truth and glory of his revealed word. God led Abram away from Esau, his native place, where he was a maker of baskets, and took him to an ancient land of Ham, which had been destroyed by Droops before the flood. As the name signifieth, thereafter God surnamed him Abraham, and made him chief rabbi over the faithless in Arabia. These then are the generations of the line whence came Abram. Sorry, guys. Abram, that is to say, of Shem and the 70 tribes, first going forth beyond the mountains of Oahspe Habal Tar, who settled the Harisi, and his ascendants Raphbach, and his descendants Go, and his descendants Wawa, and his descendants Sedar. In Sedar, the line was lost, but through his daughter Barbar, regained through the Ihins in the lands of goats, where the Listians lived, having fled from the tyranny of the kings of Os. From Barbar was descended Egaunt, from him Dir, from him Shah, from him Hilal, from him Reka. And here the line ran from the female heirs, beginning in Reka's daughter, Hess, from whom was descended Gilgil. I don't make these names up, guys. From whom was descended Thusa, from whom was descended she, from whom was descended 7 generations in Suez, and it was lost in Wetako, but regained again through Ihin's seed, and it reappeared in Rebuth, and again Suez, extended through the generations. Arphaxad, Sala, Eber, Peleg, Ro, Sarug, Nahor, and Terah. But in Terah the line was lost, but regained by Ihin's seed, from whose sprang Geth, from whose sprang Gus, from whose sprang Rabak, from whom sprang Yashem, and by Ihin's seed sprang Elot, and by Ihin's seed Shear, and by Ihin's seed Shirah, from whom descended Norah, the second, from whom sprang Abraham. Abram was of pure blood, and Ihuan, and the light of Suez, had been with his forefathers and foremothers since the flood, and he was large and red like new copper, and had black hair and long beard, fierce to look upon. But his soul was gentle as a woman's. Abram could see without eyes and hear without ears, knowing things by the light of God which dwelt in him. Therefore God chose Abram to gather together the faithless in Arabia and adjacent countries, even as he appointed Po and Jaeth. Sorry, guys. Sorry about that, guys. In those days, it's hard. Every time I want to speak, I have to clear my throat chakra. Goodness sakes. In those days, there were great kings and men of great learning, and they had books of learning and instruments of measuring things far and near. And Abram knew these things, for he had been a servant in a king's family, where learned men and women congregated. And so, knowing the power of God was upon him, he ran away in his youth and lived amongst the Philistines, who made baskets and trinkets in the forests, which they sold to the king's people. God spake to Abram, saying, Fear not for men of learning, neither grieve thou for the learning in books. When they are forgotten, thy words and thy labors will overspread the world. And God lived with Abram, teaching him and working miracles through him. And it came to pass that the Philistines, in their rambles, selling wares, told the slaves of the kings about the wonders of Abram. And the slaves fled from bondage and went into the wilderness in search of Abram. And when they came before him, he spake unto them day by day as they came, saying, Why have ye come? I call you not. And when they could not answer, Abram said unto them, God brought you. Man of himself doeth nothing. Search then the records of your generations, for ye are descended from the faithless of old. And they searched and found not one had come, but was descended from before the time of Zarathustra. Abram said, Think not that God cometh to one man alone. When he provideth the voice, he also provideth ears and hearts, because ye have faithful unto him. He calleth you to deliverance from your enemies, who are God's enemies also. When there had come to Abram in She-odowan 4,500 souls, God spake to Abram, saying, Come now, I will lead thee and thy people into another country. So Abram led them thence and came into lower Woudlutz. And it came to pass that in the year after they departed out of She-odowan, a famine came upon the land, and the enemies of God were cut off, and could not pursue Abram and his people. After this, it was that Abram was called Abraham, and he built altars of worship and altars of sacrifice according to the commandments of God. Which God? Because, yeah, we're going to sacrifice shit. Yeah, good one. Now it come to pass in the early days of Abram, he told his brothers that the light and power of God were with him, and thou others believe in Abraham. Yet Lot, Abram's brother, and Lot, Abram's nephew, believed not in Abraham, saying of him, he was born naturally in all wise of his own judgment. God said to Abraham, Behold, it is an easy matter to commune with spirits, but to judge righteously of them is not so easy, for which reason thou and thy wife and 100 picked men shall go and visit Sodom and Gomorrah in the valley of Siddim. Interesting, that's in here. And Abraham and his people went as commanded by God and visited the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And God spake privy to Abraham, saying, I will destroy these cities, for they are as hells for evil spirits, but Lot shall escape for thy sake. And when they came to Sodom, behold, angels walked amongst the people, and people knew they were angels, but cared not for them. And there were laws made by Bera, king of Sodom, regarding the behavior betwixt angels and men. And Abraham, being pressed by the presence of God, said unto his people, Behold, there are angels that love to dwell in lust, and to partake with mortals, to eat with them, to lie down with them, and to partake in all ungodly pleasures. God, through his angels, rained down fire and brimstone on Sodom and Gomorrah, and they were burnt and destroyed. Lot, the elder, escaped and went and lived in a cave. Now, after Abraham and his people returned to Jerith, his camp, and it was night, God said, Abraham, be thou steadfast and show thy people that they may understand my words. And while as they were yet praying before the altar, God withdrew from Abraham and suffered the evil angels who had followed them from Sodom and Gomorrah to draw near about the altar. And one of the angels clothed himself in a great light and with a crown with sparkling gems, and he appeared so all the multitude of the people could look upon him. Abraham said, Who art thou? And the Spirit said, I am thy God, ruler of heaven and earth. Abraham said, I am thy servant. What wouldest thou? And the Spirit said, Thou shalt take thy own son Isaac and thy hosts who were with thee in Sodom and Gomorrah, and go with me whither I lead thee, for I have great work for thee. Abraham said, Whatsoever thou puttest upon me to do, that will I do. So in the morning, Abraham and his son Isaac and the hosts who had been with Abraham to Sodom and Gomorrah assembled together. And Abraham spake, saying, Whether, O God? The Spirit answered, saying, Take sticks and firebrand, and come thou to the summit of yonder hill, for thou shalt restore the rights of burnt offerings. Again, which God? So Abraham told that what God had said, and they started, and Isaac carried the bundle of willows, such a basket makers use, saying, This will light the large pieces, but what will thou burn for an offering, O father? And Abraham said, God will provide. And when they ascended to the place, Abraham gathered logs and heaped them up, and Isaac placed the willows. Then spake the Spirit, saying, What shall a man love above all things in the world? And Abraham said, God. And the Spirit said, For which reason thou offer thy own son, Isaac, as a burnt offering? And it shall be testimony before the people that thou wilt obey God, even to sacrifice of thy own flesh and kin. Abraham said, Show me thou art God, that I may not err, for I have been commanded not to kill. And the Spirit departed away from Abraham, perceiving that he knew the higher law. And Isaac was grieved at heart, but he desired to witness what a sacrifice was. And the people, seeing a ram near at hand, went and caught it and slaughtered it, and sprinkled the blood on the sacrifice. And they lighted the fire, roasted the flesh, and took it and gave it to the poor. And Abraham called the place Jehovah-Jireh. And they returned to the camp, and Abraham, being moved of God, spake before the people. Abraham said, This testimony declare I unto you, whereof witness are of your own brethren, that even the chosen of God can be deceived by evil angels. For they can take any name and form, and having no fear of God before them, declare falsehood for truth and darkness for light. Pause. And so many people are falling for the same garbage again. This time it comes in the form of extra interdimensional beings who prop themselves up in this big, fiery love ball of glowing light. And people are being deceived because they're not going through their questions to see what resonates with them. And as you have seen, the evilest of cities, even as well as the purest, may be the abiding place of angels. For which reason ye shall not seek signs and miracles, for these may be of evil spirits, even to the showing of their bodies and conversing learnedly. It is not in the power of man to know by words and signs, or by oaths or promises, what is truth. One thing hath the Father created withal, which is his own light. Wherefore be ye believing toward men and angels, and wherein they teach ye according to Jehovah, which is life unto all and happiness unto all, without sacrifice to any, there are holy. If man or angel say, visit the sick and administer to the distressed, follow his advice, for it is of the Father. But if a man or an angel say, do thou thus, and thou shalt have profit or glory or applause, obey him not, for he adviseth for thyself and not for the brotherhood of men. He is not of God. For spirits will come in disguise of your fathers and mothers who are dead, professing love and profit to you. Believe them not. Say they teach you to sacrifice self for the good of others. The wicked in heart, having profited in herds and in gold and silver, say, behold, God hath blessed me. But I say unto you, they are cursed and not of God. Hath he here gathered you together because ye are rich? Ye were slaves and in poverty, sick and in bondage, and he came and delivered you. Be ye like unto him, and he will abide with you. If a man comes saying, behold, this is my coat, give it to me. Thou shalt say, prove thyself as to whom thou art. But if a man come to thee saying, thy herd has gone astray, thou shalt not say to him, prove thyself as to who thou art, but go thou and see after thy herd. If a spirit say, behold, I am thy father, say to him, it is well, what wouldest thou? And when he answereth thee, consider if his words be of God. And if his words be not of God, which are for the glory of the Creator, thou shalt challenge him to prove himself. As God is captain of heaven and earth unto all righteous souls, so there are a Satan who is captain over evil spirits. And inasmuch as the king's people have not faith in the Father, their souls fall a prey to Satan and his hosts. Let not any man flatter himself, saying, behold, I have joined the faithless Israelites. My soul shall escape hell, for in that day and hour God may be putting him to the test to see if his hearts be for good works and holiness. For as ye profess God, ye are doubly bound to practice godliness in your behavior toward men and angels. And that's a bunch of truth when speaking with spirits. You've got to know what intentions they have. But not everybody who speaks with, it's very complicated. Very, very complicated. And the reason being is that evil has been manifested through the godly people, in my opinion. Because God has a shadow side. Evil. Good, evil. It both exists here. It's both of God's creation. It's you are being tested, and if you are being manipulated, you got to know the frequency and the resonance of it all. It's very, very interesting. Though we're all tested all the time, it's about seeing it. Now to the top of the book. Chapter 6. Ahura, immediately on his return to his kingdom, set about accomplishing this great labor. Now there were with Ahura many who had been sub-gods and captains and generals under him, while he was in rebellion against Jehovah and his kingdoms. And when they heard of the proclamation, they said within their souls, what? Is it possible Ahura is at his old games? For they knew not his concert with the kingdoms above, and so believed not in his power. Jehovah moved upon Ahura and induced him to send numerators and graders throughout his kingdoms, to take the measure of those who had faith and of those who had no faith, and those who had neither faith nor non-faith. And these Ahura graded and numbered, so when the time came, he should know where to place them. Then he numbered the unlearned and dumb, and then enthusiastic, he graded them and arranged them also. When he had this much accomplished, there came to him one, Anuhazi, a former sub-god, and he said to Ahura privily, I love thee, Ahura, and for the reason come before thee, thou shalt meet only failure and disaster in thy undertaking. How many times in thy mighty kingdom of Tusk didst the All-High fail to come thee? Ahura said, because of thy love I rejoice in thee, but because of thy lack in faith I deplore thee. How long will it be before angels and mortals understand the Father and his kingdoms? Behold, in the days of Tusk, I labored not for Jehovah, but for myself in my exploration, and for the acceleration of my kingdom for my own ends. Hence the All-High came not to answer my prayers. Now in this matter I am doing that which is not for me, not for my kingdom, for my own sake, but for the Father's sake only, and I know he will not fail me. And Anuhazi said, hath it not been for the time of the ancients till now that certain ones say that by prayer and faith all things are possible, assuring us moreover that by such are all things accomplished on earth and in heaven? And yet who hath not witnessed more failure than success? I do not desire to discourage thee, O Ahura, but I know so well the lack of faith on the part of all men, and that to get oneself weaned away from self is the weakest talent in the soul, and for which reason too it is ultimately the greatest glory. But this would seem to me expedient, to have Cpenta-Armij and her hosts do this resurrection for thee. Ahura said, even thy every thought have I already fulfilled. And through the chieftainess came the Father's voice, commanding me to do this resurrection on my own account. To this Anuhazi made no reply, but in his soul he was not free from the Tetracts, being jealous that Ahura had advanced him, obtaining the Father's commands. But Ahura perceived it not, and he said to Anuhazi, the hosts of Alkin have been numbered, and they were 4,500 million. Within the grades above the Aegean, there are 170,000 schools, 230,000 colleges, 400,000 factories, and 200,000 hospitals. Behold, on the day of resurrection, I shall have the Han Od Wucha recreation for my hosts. Let this then be thy labor, to have the matter proclaimed throughout Alkin. Anuhazi said, by Jehovah's leave and thine, I am satisfied. Thus ended the matter, and Ahura remembered afterward that Anuhazi had not answered positive acceptance, and so Ahura feared and not make doubly sure, called Evasan and committed the same charge to him. Now when the time came, lo and behold, Anuhazi fulfilled not his part, but Evasan did. And Evasan, moreover, came to Ahura bringing answers from all the departments. In the morning of the day of the resurrection, Ahura sent for Anuhazi and inquired concerning the matter. Anuhazi said, Nay, I issued not the proclamation nor thy invitation, for I reasoned on the matter, saying to myself, if the resurrection be a failure, then would it indeed be better than the ignorant know not of it. Ahura said, to do well one's own part, is this not the highest? Anuhazi said, it is the highest. Even so have I done that would seem the highest in my own sight. Ahura said, the resurrection was not for thee, nor for me, but for the host. For thou hadst previously admitted that the resurrection of the plateau was the highest, best thing to be done, because it seemed impractical in thy sight. Thou wert not justified in withholding thy hand. Thou wouldst have striven to accomplish that which was for the universal good, not even whispering thy distrust to anyone. Then had it failed, thy own soul had been clear, for which reason Jehovah came to me, and I was admonished to depute Eva son in the stand, and he hath fulfilled my commands. And Hazi made no reply, but went away in displeasure, and for the present the matter was dismissed. Ahura had sent invitations to the lords of their divisions of the earth, asking them to come, bringing their attendants with them. Of these the following came, to wit, and here comes the names I cannot pronounce: Owa, lord of High Ha Kappa, lord of paradise; Lo Gam, lord of Viramij; Jesse, lordess of Septa; Ami, lordess of Kosmon; Horam, lord of Flu; and Putsi, lordess of Sinyat, each bringing 1 million attendants, besides hundreds of thousands of visitors of the lower grade. Cpenta-Armij with her visitors, Oahspe Wagang, and Ha-Oha, and 5 million attendants, and 5 and 30 million visitors from Krishavi, gave in an alvanza made from the purpose. The place of removal which Ahura had decided to inherit was in the second belt below Meteorus, known in atmosphere at the time as Vara Pishan-aha, which laid betwixt the land of Vinu and the star region known as the horse and cow and calf pastures, a heavenly place uninhabited. From Alkin to Vara Pishan-ha was 14 hours in grade 25, which was the average of Ahura's hosts, but its enlargement in the upper belt would have been 15 to 9. Cpenta-Armij and her hosts were the first to arrive in Ahura's dominion, for she had determined that nothing should lead to failure in Ahura's enterprise. Through her advice, Ahura stationed water bearers and the entire distance of travel, lest in the excitement the Judras might run into knots or riot, for such is the nature of darkness, both on earth and in the lower heavens. The low delight to dwell in a city or near a place of filth, if companionable, rather than go to a place of isolation where improvement is possible. Jehovah had said to Ahura, "Suffer not thy Judras to know that wilt remove them so far from the earth. Confide thou only with the wise in reference to thy destiny." Cpenta-Armij had said to Ahura, "Provide thou Judras a holiday and parade with rites and ceremonies." And Ahura perceived how the matter had to be, and he apportioned 80 million of his hosts to provide parades, rites, and ceremonies for the Judras of his hosts. And these Judras ranking below grade 5, they were 1,200 million, being such angels as knew not the left hand from the right, nor could remember to count 5 from one day to the next. And yet the next 1,000 million, rating below 12, knew so little more, they were scarcely wiser than the beasts in the field. Cpenta-Armij, seeing this, exclaimed, "O Jehovah, how long must Ahura labor with these in order to raise them to grade 99? Oh, that they who set themselves up as gods knew they lay before them. Oh, leaders of men knew. Oh, that mortal kings and queens, the bondage that they lay down for themselves. What a work in the lower heavens for them before they can ascend. And yet, O Jehovah, thou art just. Someone must labor with these unfortunates. It is well that man aspireth to be king and Lord and God." When they were assembled for the resurrection, the thousands of millions, Cpenta-Armij went and stood at the right hand of Ahura and sat, and next to her stood Oaks, and on the left hand stood Si Wan Gang, And ha, oh ha, and the voice of Jehovah fell upon Ahura, saying, extend my lines to the four corners of the world, give into my labor the highest grades. Accordingly, the marshals drew the line on the plateau, and the hosts of Etheria stood equally toward every corner, arranged in the phalanx of 10 million, each having the form of a quarter of a circle, leaving the lines of power from center to circumference. And the distance thereof was equal to the width of Venue on the corporeal earth, and the center of the plateau was high rise, so that Ahura stood on the highest place, which lay near the capital of the council. Now it so happened that the jealous Anahazi stood 12th on the east line, being the 13th from Ahura's left hand. Cpenta-Armij said to Ahura, behold, the line shattered. Ahura said, I feel nothing, but sayest thou, the line is shattered? She answered him, saying, he who doeth Jehovah's work must deal as Jehovah dealeth. Only those who are in concert with thee must labor with thee, otherwise the best endeavors be thwarted, Ahura said. O thou far perceiving goddess, in my much love and sympathy I admitted Anahazi to the lines. He hath been my best friend. Cpenta-Armij said, thou shalt know but one friend, Jehovah. Ahura perceived, and he now felt the shattered place, and he sent his chief marshal to Anahazi to bring him from the rank. And when Anahazi was before Ahura, and the latter said unto him, because thou servest thyself, thou shalt stand not in line. Behold, there is only but one to serve, even Jehovah. Anahazi said, O joy upon thee and thy scheme, because thou art powerless, thou hast singled me out as an excuse before the gods and goddesses. Ahura made no answer. He spake before Jehovah, saying, give me my strength for thy children's sake, O Father. Behold, I have cut loose the foundations of Alkin. With high extending cords I have bound her to Varapushana. By virtue of thy power in me I will raise her up. In thy name, in my hosts, in will command, arise upward onward. O Alkin, arise upward onward. O Alkin, arise upward onward, O Alkin. With the third enunciation, which came from the thousands of millions in concert, behold, the plateau moved from her foundation, turned a little, then slowly upward arose. Loud shouted all the inhabitants of the heaven with their own universal, Geez Louise! With the great spirit stretched forth his hand and raised up the heavenly continent, even as with his hand he toucheth a corporeal continent and standeth in it beneath the ocean. So riseth his heavenly places toward his emancipated worlds. Yeah, because of his spirit upon his people, they desired it risen. With them and him, all is one. And now the gods, with unbroken will, held their places, as it were a day for the corporeal earth, and not a god or goddess from the single purpose in thought, straight a moment of time, and no distracting thought intervening, for such is the will and mastery of gods over their own thoughts. Even then, to keep up the concert force joyously, those who had the drujas in charge sorry guys, set the games and tournaments going with racing and music, such as they should leave not one idle moment for all the hosts of Alkin, nearly 5,000 million. Upward and onward rose the great plateau, making straight course for Varapushana. Ahura stood in the eyes of the unlearned populace as the greatest and most masterly of all the gods. One alone, even Anahazi, stood a while transfixed with disappointment and chagrin, even hoping some mishap to Jehovah's proceedings. And finally he went wandering about, sore and out of sorts with all righteousness. Thus was raised the heavenly place, and no longer called Alkin, but Varapushana, home of Ahura and his hosts. And now when they were securely established in the place, and the gods and goddesses broke from line, they all came greeting to Ahura. And even in the same moment of time, a messenger came from God, who was with Brahma on the corporeal earth, bringing to Cpenta-Armij the following commandment by proxy, to wit, In Jehovah's name, give thou a throne and crown to Ahura for me, and in my name I promise him thus. The light came upon Cpenta-Armij, and Jehovah spake through her, saying, Behold the work of my hand, O Ahura, my son. In the substance of heaven fashion I thee a crown and high-rise capital, and with my own hands weave thee a crown. From this time forth thou shalt be my God, and I will abide thee. Whilst the words were being spoken, the throne rose up before Cpenta-Armij's hand, and a high-rise capital came and stood over and about the throne. And there descended from the heavens above boughs of light and color, which in Cpenta-Armij's fingers were shaped and woven into a crown, which alighted on Ahura's head. And there went up from the host of a universal shout of praise and thanksgiving. Then broke in the trumpeters 7 million, and after they played a while, the ensuers chanted the concerted hosts of Jehovah. Thus was founded Jehovah's heavenly kingdom, Vara Parashana. I keep saying that wrong, guys. I'm sorry. Thus established Ahura his dominions, where rebellion and secession were cut off forever. And Cpenta-Armij gave to Ahura 1,000 messengers and opened a roadway to Khrushchev. Ahura ascended his throne, and the gods and goddesses saluted him. God of Vara Pishana. and their attendants departed their several places. I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying not to cough. I don't know why. I was fine all day. I've been taking my supplements and eating properly, so I don't know what this is, but it's really annoying. So give me a minute. In the 3rd year of dawn, Jehovah spake to Cpenta-Armij, saying, Gather together the officers of thy traveling hosts, and take with thee thy companions, and go and visit all the lord and lordesses of the earth of thy appointing, and let thy records make their accounts of their affairs of earth and her heavenly kingdoms, that they may be taken to and entered into the libraries of the Nirvanian kingdoms. Also shalt thou set thy collectors of brides and bridegrooms to work in Khrushchev. Sorry, guys, fixing my teeth. And give to thy collectors Atavent, that they may also visit thy Lord's kingdoms and collect all the angels prepared for the next resurrection and bring them to Khrushchev, where they shall be classified. For in the coming resurrection thou shalt provide 12 alvand. I don't know what is going on with me today. Alvanzas. And those who shall rise to the Ethereal heavens, thou shalt cause to be divided according to their grade and rate, and have them delivered into the regions suitable to their advancement. During the time prior to this, the Lords contributed largely to Khrushchev, and already they were upward of 20,000 million angels capable of taking the 3rd resurrection. The departure of Cpenta-Armij on this visit was important, for it involved the selection of the next succeeding god of the earth and heaven, who should sit on the throne during her absence. At this time, the reigning god was with Brahma on the earth. To him, Cpenta-Armij sent messengers acquainting him with the commandments of Jehovah. God answered through his messengers, saying, Greeting in the name of Jehovah to Cpenta-Armij, his daughter chiefess. The reigning god deputeth thee, O goddess, to make the selection in his stead, to be crowned at the termination of dawn. And now, according to Cpenta-Armij, sent forth her examiners to search after the highest, best, most learned of all that have been raised up on the earth, capable of the Godhead. For 60 days her examiners were at work, and on the 60th day, in the evening, they had completed the search and fell upon Thale of Poloa, of corporeal birth, 5,000 years. Thale, a tiller of the soil in Kapor, born in spirit, Yasun, 90 years, 5 years in Asuan, 30 years in factories and the nurseries, 90 years in the colleges, 180 years projector, 70 years surveyor, 65 years measurer, 200 years enter an Etherean Ervanga, and traveled 700 years, returned to the lower heavens of the earth, and was Lord in 6 successions. For each of the chief earth divisions, 1200 years, was called the An-Avisa, goddess of Nai-Ag-Ag-Ha, to clear the roads of Chenshaya beyond Shivat, where he labored 600 years, returned again to the earth and her heavens, and served as captain and general 400 years, served as marshal 700 years under 4 different gods and lords, and the balance of the time traveled as messenger and swift messenger. Of the rates in 1,000, he was 999, and he knew the whole earth and her capabilities, could read 1,000 million voices at the same time and interpret them and answer them, and had even created plateau. He knew the atmospheric heavens, habitable and uninhabitable, the roadways, the oceans, nebulous regions, knew the ascending and descending eth, knew the power in the different rings of the earth's vortex, knew the sea and its times and places. Cpenta-Armij sent a delegation of 1 million angels to wait on Thale and bring him before the throne of Khoshavi, sending them in her private atavan and under the guardianship of her chief marshal with this commandment. Thale of Paloa, greeting to thee in the name of Jehovah, who commandeth thy immediate presence at the throne in Khoshavi. Of all the honored in these heavens, thou standest first on the list and art appointed by our father, the next succeeding God, through his daughter chiefness of Hot Sati. In my stead thou shalt sit on the throne whilst I complete my labor in dawn, after which thou shalt be crowned of the earth and her heavens, Jehovah's God. Cpenta-Armij knew Thale, for he had sojourned in Oahspe, in Etheria 300 years, where she had been surveyor 10,000 years. So when they came before Jehovah's throne, Cpenta-Armij was rejoiced to meet him in person. Nevertheless, the first saluted in rank, saying, My brother, welcome in the Father's name, and joy unto thee. Jehovah hath called thee to this throne. Thou shalt be one of the pillars of his everlasting temples. What I put upon thee in the Father's name, thou shalt consider for him. Thou said, Before thee, O Jehovah, I bow to thee decrees, which come through thy highest rise daughter, chiefness of Hot Sati. I accept whatever is given to me to do, that will rise up men to rejoice in his creation. By virtue of thy power in me, O Jehovah, I know I shall not fail. May thy light be upon me. Cpenta-Armij now raised the light to the highest atmospheric grade and said unto Thale, Approach Jehovah's throne, O my brother, and hold up the hands toward high noon, as a symbol of the highest light. For as the sun is to the earth and atmosphere, so is Jehovah to the soul of man and to the Ethereal worlds. Thale stepped on the foot of the throne, and the marshal stood at his side. The whole council were seated, and sweet music rose from the ensuers and added to the solemn scene. Thale then faced the place of high noon in the temple and held up his hands, saying, I am in thy will, O Father. I'm pausing. Something is not wanting me to read this. Probably my spirit guides, because they don't want me to read so much. But I do apologize, guys, because it's frustrating me. It really is. It's really frustrating me. This book has been very frustrating for everything I have already read. But like today, I don't know. Weird. Just weird. Jehovah spake in the light over Cpenta-Armij's head, saying, Thale, my son, thou art my God, and thou shalt have dominion over the earth and her heavens for 200 years. Whatsoever thou shalt do shall be of me and my doing. Thy word shall be my word, thy labor my labor, and thou shalt have lords and kingdoms in all matter of heavenly places, and all of them shall be my places through thee. And at the expiration of thy service, thou shalt raise up a successor to thee, who shall be worthy of thee and me, and he shall let them have dominion in me and my places, and likewise raise up a successor to come after him, and so on until the next dawn of Dan. Be thou joyful in dominion. My worlds are places of delight and mirth, and peace and love and righteousness and good works. The voice ceased. Then Cpenta-Armij spake on her own account, saying, He who will crown thee will come at the end of dawn. Till then, thou shalt hold dominion in the red hat, in remembrance of the Feast of Lions. Approach the judgment seat, my brother, and I will give to thee in Jehovah's name. With that, Cpenta-Armij gathered from her colored rays of light a substance light as eth, and made a red hat and put it on Thal's head, saying, Sit on the throne in remembrance of the Feast of Lions, that I may be honored of thee and rejoice thee, my host. Thal then sat down on the throne, and the council proclaimed in the sign, Lion's death. Thal answered in the sign, Dominion of the Lamb. Thereof Cpenta-Armij said, Council of Jehovah, hear my voice. A new God have I raised up unto my labor. And thou, O God, hear my voice. A new dominion have I given into my keeping. For 1 year I shall now visit my lords and lordesses in the first plateau of the earth, for it is a part of my labor for the Father. And when I shall have finished with them, I shall return to my present reigning God of the earth, who is with Brahma. And I will deliver him in Brahma and return again to this kingdom, whence the Ethereal resurrection will take place. Provide ye according in all things, even as I here, and the number of brides and bridegrooms, 160 days in advance, and send swift messengers to Etheria, to Nirvanian fields and hosts in Chan-Ushag, thence through Salwaka to Hotsati in the Etherean Ram, finding 6 regions suitable for grades 60 to 90, and ye shall send greeting to my sister Shu in Ista, goddess of Buyu, asking her to deliver us. Thus saying, Cpenta-Armij Ox and Siwagang and Ha-Oha took leave in their own proper way, departed out of Krashavi in the Avlanza, descended to the lowest plateau, and so visited lords of the lower kingdoms. The lords and lordesses gave not much labor to Cpenta-Armij, for they had long been high-rise gods and goddesses in other worlds, and knew their parts well. But to each heavenly place Cpenta-Armij sent her heralds in advance, and the lords and lordesses in turn sent receiving escorts to meet the Arvanga. And when the chiefess arrived, she was asked in the usual manner to honor the throne, and she thus sat on all the thrones, ruling in very person. In her presence the voice of Jehovah spake in the light before the assembled council of the hosts, and it was thus filled in the Arca Septa that the voice had circumscribed the whole earth. And when Cpenta-Armij was about to depart each heavenly place, she always ascended to the foot of the throne of the Lord and sat thereon. And the Lord went down and took her hand, saying, Arise, O goddess, and go thy way. The Father calleth thee. And then would she arise and depart to another lord or lordess in like manner. Cpenta-Armij took with her 3,000 angel scribes and reporters, 3,000 angel artists, 3,000 angel geologists and mineralogists, besides many others whose trade was to make reports of the lands of the earth and the waters of the earth and the air above and the earth with pictures thereof. Jehovah had said to Cpenta-Armij, Thou shalt make reports of the land and water and air of the earth, and all the living thereupon and therein with pictures thereof. 2 copies shalt thou make, and when the end of dawn is come, thou shalt take the 2 copies with thee in the ascension to my Etherean worlds, One copy shalt thou put on record in the library of Oahspe, and the other copy shall thou send to the Hyperis Council of the United Chiefs and Chieftainess for their own deliberations. For the Hyperis Council shall determine from this thy report what is good for the earth, as to whether she shall be changed in her course or broken up and divided, or whether she needed Ajai or Dan. They shall send out road makers to the end and send vortices against her vortex to break it or rule over it according to my light upon them. Besides these, Cpenta-Armij had 1,000 recorders whose business it was to prepare reports of the Lord's kingdoms and of the factories, colleges, nurseries, grade and number of spirits in each heavenly place, to record the earthly kingdoms and kings and queens and their subjects, their occupations and grades, and their rate of corporal life age. To record the percentage of familiar spirits with mortals, the fetals, the drujas, as well as the ashars and asaphs, and the temples and oracles in use by mortals, the altars and places of worship, to record the number of Ihans still inhabiting the earth and the number of the pure Ihumans who worshipped only one great spirit, the Druk order, who always have idols or saviors or are given to war. 1 full moon of 4 quarters remained Cpenta-Armij with each of the lords of the earth, and then she departed, going into all the habitable places on the earth and in the heavens that rested on the earth. In 10 moons she had completed her labor with the lords of the first resurrection, had witnessed the manner in which the Lord sent away the uprise to Kochavi to enter the second resurrection, and her scribes and recorders had completed their labor also. And now the chiefness sent her Alvanga back to Kochavi with her visitors, Oak, Siwagang, and Ha-Oha, but herself she had a Hedmzer built and taken 10,000 attendants besides the workers of the boat. She descended onto the very earth to visit the 4 gods in the 4 great divisions of the earth, the Iwata with Brahma, with Abram, and with Po. With each of these she spent 12 days, and then she departed and went to Mitras, the heavenly place, the only lorddom of the earth, where ruled Yag-Sai-Su with 30 million. Here she remained 12 days also, and the inhabitants gave a tournament and festival. After this, Cpenta-Armij departed for Kochavi, for the end of dawn was near at hand. And I finished, finally, yay! Sorry, guys. I had to fight through that. I don't know why. It's so bizarre. My voice coughing didn't happen all day. And then halfway through this, so I do apologize. I tried pausing a few times to like clear my throat, cough it out, whatever is going on needs to get out of me, by the way. I didn't spray paint or anything down here, so like nothing should, I don't have my heater on, nothing should be really bothering me. No idea. But I'm gonna double up on my zinc and vitamin D. And anything else that I take a lot of shit. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, as that was probably brutal for you as much as it was for me. But I hoped you got something out of that. Sending each and every one of you love, light, protection, and shielding. Please have a fabulous weekend. Please protect yourself, be safe, be seen. And I hope to see you on the next one. Bye, guys.